In this video we're going to talk about presentation skills. Now this is one video amongst a few on this topic, and it's recommended that you look at each of them. So go back over the others and make a complete set of notes for yourself. Stop the videos, make notes, rewind, wind forward, etc. Use the video effectively and make notes off the videos and get a good set of notes on how to make presentations, because it is an important business skill. Now some of the points I've got here will inevitably overlap with other videos, but some will be distinct, so it's worth watching just for to get a complete picture. So let's start. Well, presenting is a skill that is developed through experience and training. If it's something that you're doing for the first time, then practice it. Practice it many times. Practice it with your friends and get feedback and get recommendations from friends and from family or whoever you can pull in to watch your presentations, and make sure that you are completely knowledgeable about the subject. So develop your presentation skills in advance of making your presentation. It should be effective. The presentation should produce a result, and the result should be the intended result. You're there to communicate a message, to impart some piece of knowledge or some insight into something, and it should produce the result that goes with that expectation. Now the purpose of presentations, well, there are three main purposes. First of all, to inform. The presentation may inform the audience about some development. If it's a business presentation, about perhaps an innovation or some new technique or some new restructuring of the business, or some evidence that's been collected about customer needs. So a presentation may be to inform the audience. It could also be to persuade them to do something or even to buy something. It could be, if it's business again, persuade the management to act differently and to reorganize and to consider different proposals. So it could be trying to persuade, or indeed to educate, to make people aware that there is some new way of thinking about a certain phenomenon or a certain product, or educate them about the way customers are changing, customer needs are changing, and so on. Now let's look at the steps involved in presentations. First of all, determine the purpose of the presentation. What's the presentation trying to do? Is it to inform, educate, persuade? What's the purpose of the presentation? Have a clear picture of what's required, because that will drive the way the presentation is worked out, the way it's delivered, the type of material. It will partially determine the overall, if you like, performance of the presentation. Once you've got the purpose, then the main points should be fairly obvious. The main points that need to be emphasized, the points that need to be mentioned. And collect any evidence to support the points or evidence related to the points. This could be facts and figures, or it could be statements made by people, or it could be tables showing trends, or whatever it is. Just collect the evidence and have the evidence ready as a part of the presentation. And then prepare an outline of the presentation. Now, once you've completed this, once you know what the the presentation's about, the purpose, and you've worked out the main points, what needs to be said, and you've collected the evidence. You don't overwhelm the audience with too much evidence. It should be sufficient, and there should be an indication that more evidence is available if required. But the main points of evidence should perhaps be explained and set out. And then prepare an outline of the presentation. Now, when that's done, then the actual presentation itself. Now, the steps involved in a presentation, well, first of all, introduce yourself and explain why the audience should listen to you. Why is the message important? Why is the presentation important? What are the issues that are concerned? What's the presentation going to say that's going to be of interest to them? So attract the audience. So clearly define the topic so that the people in the audience know what's going to be said, they know what the topic is, and they know that this is of interest to them because they've turned up for it, and they know exactly what the focus is going to be, and they're not going to be disappointed at the end, expecting something and getting something different. So there's a clear definition of topic at the start. Supporting evidence should be clearly worked out. If it's tables or charts, don't overwhelm the audience, and don't even get involved in technicalities, calculations and obscure statistical relationships. Put it across in a straightforward manner, but at the same time indicate that more material is available upon request. In other words, you're not hiding anything, you're not making anything up, you're not fabricating the results, or you are simply saying, this is the relationship, these are the facts and the figures, that's what happened, and this is what we calculated. And if somebody in the audience subsequently challenges that, you can indicate that more evidence is available and this is the source, this is where it can be found. Give examples where possible. Give examples of situations that, perhaps simple examples, but nonetheless ones which will amplify the main point, which will explain the main point and clarify the main point. So be prepared to give examples. And allow some time at the end for feedback and questions from the audience. Being open for questions shows an openness, shows a confidence in the subject, knowledge of the subject, and it shows that you're prepared to take on any questions related to the topic. You have nothing to hide, you're being honest and open, and the audience will feel comfortable about the whole exercise as a consequence. Now, the common problems involved in this type of presentation is, first of all, verbal filters. There's a problem of sometimes sidetracking yourself, that the information you want to give is related to a certain area, you start on a broader area, and you need to filter it down to where you're going. So you start with the general topic. If it's a business presentation, you talk about the performance of the business. Then you want to get into, in particular, the performance of the production section. So you're filtering it down. But the audience needs to know the direction in which you're moving. And it may be that you want to use Venn diagrams or some sort of schematic presentation of how you are filtering down to where you want to talk about. Sometimes doing it in words is complicated. People get lost. They get confused. At one moment you're talking about something broad, the next moment you're talking about something very specific. So perhaps a little chart showing the broad area and the subheadings and the one you're going to speak about will clarify this issue. Watch out for gaps between sentences. Try and make the presentation consistent. Try and have a fluency in the delivery so that it all runs smoothly from start to finish. There are no long gaps where you're trying to remember what you're going to say next, or what comes next, or if you've made a mistake to go back a few slides. Try to avoid that. It shows that you haven't practiced it and you're not familiar with the topic, and you will lose the confidence of the audience if it happens. And your own body language. Don't walk up and down. It's off-putting. People don't know if they should look at the screen where you're projecting your notes, or watch you walking up and down. Don't sway around and act like you are uncomfortable. Stand your ground. You can use a couple of paces around it, but don't exaggerate your movements. Stand your ground and deliver it in a clear and consistent fashion. Don't put your hands in your pockets and look too casual. Treat the audience with respect. So keep your hands out of your pockets, and don't use too much body language. Don't wave your arms around too much. Just use your hands gently to indicate points on the screen. Point to it and go back to a standing position where your arms are by your sides. You don't have to be too animated. It's distracting. You are not the message, you are the messenger, and you are portraying the message to the audience. And a common problem is not to be audience-centered. You should be audience-centered. You are delivering to the audience. So you should make eye contact with the audience. Look around the room. Engage them. Make them feel like you are talking to them. And that's important. As for some presentation tips, well, different books give different tips, but essentially it's try to don't go around smiling all the time, but at least indicate that you're comfortable with the area. You're comfortable in making the presentation. You're confident. You know what you're talking about. You are relaxed. So perhaps instead of saying smile, take those words instead. Just look like you are comfortable. Make sure your breathing is correct. Don't come across as someone who is under stress. You are panicked and you are rushing through the material, and there are long gaps while you're sorting out in your head what you're going to say next, and when you remember what you're going to say, you rush through it again. Breathe. Pace it. Pace the delivery so that it runs smoothly. Take some water with you. When you do need to have a little break, it's always good to have an excuse, if nothing else. Just take a glass of water and have a sip. But it's also good to take a sip of water to keep yourself refreshed as you go through the presentation. Although presentations should not be long in duration. Ideal presentations should be short and snappy. Long ones exhaust the audience, and they will get confused, and they will not pay attention. Have notes, but the notes should really be bullet points. Don't memorize notes, and don't read from notes. It is so off-putting. If you do not know the subject, then the audience are not going to be interested. So just have bullet points, just have the major points, and each slide should suggest the next slide. There's a linkage from one slide to the next. You are telling, if you like, a story, and all the slides are connected. The story in this case is a presentation. It's a presentation about, let's say, the efficiency of the production sector in a business. Well, describe the production sector of the business, describe the current practice, give some figures about the output of that sector, of that department, and then talk about what could happen if there was innovation or a new technique was adopted. And so you're taking the audience through the situation. Now, referring to notes and reading notes is off-putting, so just bullet points, but have those ready just in case. And always finish on time, or just under time, and if possible finish so as to allow some questions and some comments from the audience, because they feel engaged, they feel like they've made a contribution as well. And there's more enthusiasm about the topic because they are engaged. So take on any questions and deal with the questions honestly and openly. If you don't know the answer, if somebody asks a question and you don't know the answer, admit it. Do not bluff. But talk about that will be the subject matter of subsequent communications between you and that person, and just to be open to the rest of the audience, you will publish it in a blog, or you will publish it online, or you will disseminate it to them by email or whatever. So you're not hiding anything. It is a totally transparent, honest and open presentation. As I said, the material we've looked at in this session links to other videos in this area. So please look at the other videos, add these points to it, and think about your own presentations and how these points can help to improve them. That's all I'm going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to say thank you for watching, and let's leave it at that.